Did Troy Nehls unintentionally reveal why Republicans are so concerned about Jasmine Crockett's political rise? What began as a personal jab quickly became clear proof of how unsettled the GOP really is. Before we dive into how Jasmine Crockett turned a seemingly harsh attack into a strategic insight into Republican anxiety, make sure you hit that subscribe button. This story shows that in politics, sometimes the smartest response isn't firing back, it's calmly analyzing why your opponent felt the need to strike. The interview setting felt relaxed and personal, almost like a conversation in a cozy living room rather than a formal studio. The host, known for allowing guests to fully express their thoughts instead of cutting in with tricky questions, started by addressing something that everyone following politics had already noticed. Congressman Troy Nehls had made a social media post that was gaining a lot of attention and sparking debate. "Representative Crockett, I want to give you a chance to respond," the host said, showing the tweet on a tablet. The tweet read, "Congressman Troy Nehls posted this about you yesterday. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is reportedly considering a Senate run in Texas in 2026. She should run because Ken Paxton would crush her. Texas doesn't want a radical left lunatic representing them in Washington, D.C." The host then asked, "How do you respond to being called a lunatic by a fellow congressman?" There was a brief pause as Crockett considered her words carefully. Her response wasn't fueled by anger, but by a desire to be precise. She spoke with a calm, almost analytical tone, as if explaining a trend rather than defending herself. "My first reaction is that this tweet reveals far more about Troy Nehls and the current state of Republican politics than it does about me or a possible Senate run," she said. "And I mean that sincerely. There's a lot to unpack here." Crockett leaned back, signaling she was prepared to give a detailed answer rather than a short soundbite. When a sitting congressman attacks a colleague who hasn't even officially declared a campaign, and when he uses words like lunatic instead of discussing actual policy differences, it's telling. When he confidently predicts someone will lose and encourage them to run anyway, that's what we call protesting too much. It's the behavior of someone who's worried, not someone who feels secure. The host asked her to explain why she believed Nehls was nervous if he thought Paxton would easily win. Crockett's answer showed she had thought it through carefully. "Let's look at the facts instead of what Troy Nehls wants people to believe," she said. "Recent polls for a hypothetical matchup between me and Ken Paxton show a 49 to 47% split. That's just a 2-point margin in a state Trump won by 5 points in 2024. A 2-point margin is extremely close. It could go either way depending on turnout and campaign strategy." She referred to her phone to highlight specific data. "That's before we even consider the reasons this race would be competitive. I'm leading the Democratic primary by 6 points. I have strong support among Black and Brown voters, who are the fastest growing demographic groups in Texas. Fundraising numbers show I can compete financially. And most importantly, I'd be running against someone whose perceived strength isn't as certain as he claims." Ken Paxton, who is currently facing multiple legal and ethical controversies, including being impeached by his own Republican colleagues, is also a source of concern for a notable number of moderate Republicans. Crockett laid out her argument carefully, explaining it point by point. So when Troy Nehls tweets that Paxton would crush her, what he is really trying to do is shape the story before the race even starts. His goal is to make it seem like she would be an easy candidate to beat. If enough people believe that, it could discourage Democratic donors, volunteers, and voters from supporting her potential Senate campaign. However, the actual data completely contradicts that
Polling
narrative.
and analysis suggests this would be one of the most competitive Senate races in the country. The host then focused on the lunatic label in Nehls' tweet, asking Crockett how she handles such personal attacks. Her answer revealed a deeper understanding of Republican messaging strategies. Words like lunatic, radical, or extremist aren't really about policies or political positions. They are designed to make voters see the opponent as fundamentally different, someone outside the mainstream, so that their actual ideas and plans don't even have to be addressed. Crockett leaned forward slightly, her tone calm but firm, and explained why this tactic is so manipulative. "Troy Nehls knows I'm not a lunatic," she said. "He knows I'm a civil rights attorney, the former Texas legislator, and now a member of Congress. He knows I've passed laws, built coalitions, and done the real work of governing. But if he can get people to think I'm crazy rather than competent, he doesn't have to talk about my actual positions on healthcare, education, reproductive rights, and economic justice, which are popular when you poll them individually in Texas." She shared concrete numbers to back this up. 62% of Texans support protecting Social Security and Medicare. 58% support access to abortion in most or all circumstances, and 55% support raising the minimum wage. These are not radical left positions. They're majority-supported policies in Texas. But if Republicans successfully label anyone who supports them as a lunatic, they avoid debating the real issues, she explained. The conversation then shifted to why Republicans seemed particularly focused on her potential Senate run instead of other Democratic candidates. Crockett's explanation was telling. "There are a few reasons I attract more attention," she said. "First, the coalition I've built, strong support from Black voters, growing support among Latino voters, and increasing appeal to suburban women, is exactly the coalition Republicans worry about in Texas. They've historically won statewide elections by dividing Democratic coalitions, suppressing turnout in communities of color, and making people feel like their vote doesn't count. But my campaign would mobilize exactly the voters they don't want to show up," she continued, outlining another factor. "Son, I have a record of holding Republicans accountable in ways that go viral. They've seen me in hearings, they've seen me on cable news. They know I won't be intimidated or distracted by standard talking points. That makes me a serious challenge because so much of their strategy relies on Democrats staying defensive or too cautious to directly call out falsehoods." The host then asked about the contradiction in Nehls' tweet, telling her to run while also saying she would be crushed. Crockett's knowing smile suggested she saw it too. "Right?" she said. "If they really thought I was so easy to beat, they wouldn't be saying anything at all. If they really thought I was going to lose, they'd just let me run without saying a word," Crockett explained. "The fact that they're preemptively attacking, trying to define me negatively before I've even officially declared, tells you one thing: they're nervous." She broke down the strategic meaning behind these attacks. Political attacks cost time, money, and political capital. You don't waste them on opponents you aren't worried about. The fact that someone like Troy Nehls, who doesn't even represent a district near mine, is spending energy attacking my potential Senate run shows that Republicans have done the same analysis I have. They've studied the demographics, examined the polling, and looked at the fundamentals. They've concluded that I could actually win this race, and that scares them. The discussion then shifted to Ken Paxton as a potential opponent, and Crockett's evaluation was precise and sharp. Paxton has a unique position politically. He's well known among Republican primary voters and has strong support from the MAGA base, but he has major weaknesses in a general election. He was impeached by the Texas House, including several Republicans, on corruption-related charges. The Texas Senate acquitted him, but the shadow of that scandal remains. She continued, outlining his vulnerabilities. He's facing federal investigations, whistleblower complaints from his own staff, and accusations that he used his office for politically motivated investigations while neglecting basic duties as Attorney General. Polling shows that many Texans, including Republicans, have serious concerns about his ethics and judgment. Crockett's point was clear. Name recognition alone doesn't make a candidate unbeatable. Paxton may seem strong because he won the Republican primary and is well known, but his weaknesses make him vulnerable in a general election, especially against the right candidate with the right strategy. If I run, and I'm leaning closer to yes, that campaign would focus on a clear contrast: competence versus corruption, experience versus extremism, someone who fights for Texas families versus someone who uses their office for personal and political gain. The host raised the question about Texas's recent Republican trend, asking if Democrats might be too optimistic. Crockett responded with data-driven insight. Texas hasn't been trending more Republican, it's becoming more competitive. In 2012, Romney won Texas by nearly 16 points. In 2020, Trump won by less than 6. That's a 10-point shift in just 8 years. In 2022, even in a challenging year for Democrats,
Beto got 43% of the vote against an incumbent Republican governor during a midterm with inflation concerns. These numbers show a state that's turning purple, not red. She highlighted the demographic changes driving this shift. Latino voters make up a growing share of the electorate. Young voters are becoming more engaged. Suburban areas around major cities are getting more diverse and more educated. All of these trends favor Democrats if, and this is key, we can run campaigns that address these voters' priorities and get them to the polls. The conversation then circled back to Troy Nehls' personal attack, with the host asking if Crockett thought such insults were becoming more common in political discourse. Her response tied the incident to a larger pattern in politics. "What Troy did isn't new, but it's definitely escalating," Crockett explained. "We've always had heated political debates in this country, but there used to be a basic level of respect between members of Congress. You could strongly disagree on policy while still treating each other as colleagues working within the same democratic system. What's changed is that for many Republicans, and Troy Nehls is a perfect example, the goal isn't just to win politically. The goal is to destroy opponents personally, to dehumanize them, so their supporters see them not as people with different opinions, but as fundamentally illegitimate." She linked this trend to broader concerns about democratic norms. When you call a colleague a lunatic or attack their basic qualifications instead of their policy positions, you send a message that normal political disagreement isn't enough. You're telling your supporters that the other side isn't just wrong, they're crazy, dangerous, even evil. That kind of rhetoric has real consequences. It increases the risk of political violence, makes compromise nearly impossible, and complicates governance, even when you win, because you've demonized anyone who disagrees with you. The host asked if this kind of attack made Crockett less likely or more likely to run. Her answer was revealing. "If anything, it makes me more determined," she said. "Troy's tweet shows me that they're scared. They've analyzed the political landscape and concluded that I'm a threat. And if I'm a threat to people like Troy Nehls and Ken Paxton, that probably means I'm doing something right. It means the coalition I'm building and the message I'm delivering is resonating in ways that challenge Republican dominance in Texas." Crockett elaborated on her decision-making process. "I'm not going to run just because someone attacked me. That would be reactive and ego-driven. I will run if I believe I can win, and if I believe I'm the strongest candidate to represent Texas Democrats in this race. Everything I'm seeing, the polling, fundraising, coalition data, voter enthusiasm, and yes, even the panic from Republicans like Troy, suggests that I can compete and potentially win." The conversation then moved to concerns about her ability to win statewide as a black woman from Dallas. Crockett's response balanced realism with confidence. "I'm not naive about the barriers. Texas has never elected a black senator or a woman senator. The combination of those identities adds challenges, but someone has to be first. The data shows that Texas voters are ready for candidates who address their real concerns, rather than focusing on perceived identity biases." She pointed to her track record. "I represent a congressional district because voters looked past identity and elected someone competent who would fight for them. I won my primary against multiple opponents because voters trusted my message and record. Polling shows that when Texans learn about my background as a civil rights attorney, state legislator, and congresswoman with meaningful legislative accomplishments, they respond positively, even if they initially doubted whether someone like me could win statewide." In her closing remarks on the Nehls controversy, Crockett rose above the personal nature of the attack while using it to make a larger point about politics today, showing both poise and strategy in her response. "Troy can call me whatever names he wants," Crockett said. "That's his choice, and it reflects on him more than me. But he cannot change the fundamentals of this race. He can't change that Texas is becoming more diverse and more competitive. He can't change that Ken Paxton is a flawed candidate facing serious legal and ethical issues. And he can't change that I'm building a coalition that could actually win." The end of the interview came her line that quickly became the most shared clip online. "Insults aren't a strategy. Name-calling isn't a campaign plan. And panic disguised as confidence is still panic."
Troy Nehls thinks calling me a lunatic will discourage me. What he's actually done is show everyone watching that Republicans are worried about exactly what they claim won't happen: me running, competing, and potentially winning. So thank you, Congressman Nehls, for proving why this race matters and why Republicans are already scared. The interview concluded, but its impact spread far beyond that conversation. Within hours, Crockett's measured responses were going viral across social media. Progressive activists praised her calm, methodical approach to dismantling a personal attack. Political analysts highlighted how effectively she turned Nehls' insult into an opportunity to make the case for her credibility and seriousness as a candidate. Even some conservative commentators noted that she handled the situation skillfully, even if they disagreed with her policies. Troy Nehls, meanwhile, tried to double down with another tweet, claiming he was merely speaking the truth and the Democrats were too sensitive. But his follow-up lacked the confident control of his initial attack. He was now reacting to Crockett's framing instead of controlling the story himself, a major misstep in political strategy. Ken Paxton's campaign remained silent, which observers noted was telling. If they truly believed Crockett would be easy to defeat, they would have either mocked her along with Nehls or confidently stayed out of it. Their silence suggested they had conducted their own analysis and arrived at the same conclusion Crockett had. This would be a highly competitive race. In the days after the interview, Crockett's internal campaign data revealed something significant. Her favorability ratings increased among the exact voters she needed to win: moderate Democrats, independents, and suburban women. The attack from Nehls, combined with her measured response, had strengthened her position. One political strategist told a reporter, "Nothing helps a candidate more than being attacked in a way that makes them look reasonable and their opponent look unhinged." Nehls had handed Crockett that exact opportunity, and she seized it fully. If this breakdown of how Jasmine Crockett transformed a personal attack into a strategic advantage shows anything, it's that calm, data-driven responses often outperform angry counterattacks. Hit the like button and subscribe for more in-depth analysis of the political moments that separate skilled communicators from the rest. Leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Do you think Republicans are right to be worried about Crockett's potential Senate run? Share this with anyone who needs to see how intelligence and strategy can turn insults into political strength. Your engagement helps highlight the moments when political skill truly beats political noise.